Greetings to everyone. Once again, welcome to Ken's Media as your host. You all know my name is Mackenzie, and I'm here today once again with some panelists here. And we want to treat the topic: what is it like to live with African parents, both in Europe and in Africa? So, first of all, I'd like my panelists here to introduce themselves, and then we move on to the topic.
Hi guys, I'm Monica Yaboa, but my friends all call me Bella T.
Hi guys, I'm George.
Hi guys, I'm Dory Love. As usually, it's a girl.
So, you all heard the panelists' names. They're all here today on the discussion of the topic: how is it like to live with an African parents, both in Africa and in Europe? I know the relationship between African parents in Africa is quite different from African parents in Europe, because in Europe we have a whole lot of different rules and regulations here compared to what we have in Africa. First of all, I will ask, what is your opinion on African parents being an African, or being an African born in Europe living with African parents?
My opinion on being born in Europe and living with an African parent, it's quite. I personally feel like it's quite complicated, because I feel like the parents don't have the right to raise a child as the way they wanted to raise it, as living in Africa. Because in Europe they have some certain rules that applies to that child. So I feel like we have more freedom and we are more opinionated kids in terms of speaking with our parents. I feel like we are more, I don't know, I don't want to use the word chaotic, but because of the rules based on European rules specifically, you cannot beat a child, you cannot maltreat your child, because we have the right to, if our mothers or our fathers are maltreating us, we have the right to call police on them. Get it? And because of that, we take advantage of our parents. So even if our parents want to raise us in the African culture way, they can't. So that's my opinion.
Okay, George, you have something to say on this?
Yes, definitely. Okay, I will actually throw more light in Ghana, because that was where I was born and raised. I mean, most of the years of my life. So I would say when it comes to that, with being with an African parent, is less complicated, because in a sense that we live in a society whereby we do have the notion that our programming is like every day on each and every basis, no matter what happens. The parents is always right, regardless. So that is how our society is actually being programmed. So in a sense that they do actually have the right to actually tell you where to go or which lane to pass. For example, if you as a child, you want to be, for example, a nurse, and your parents tell you that, no, I just want you to be a lawyer. These are the days that things are changing. But when I was growing up, you don't have any other option but to go in line with what your parents want you to go, or where they want you to be. So I think comparatively, to reflect to what my sister said, being with an African parent in Ghana is quite, should I say, complicated, in a sense that the parents always have the maximum power.
Exactly.
Yes, unlike the European level or the European standard, whereby the child also have his or her own rights and things are different. So for me, it is less complicated for the parents in Africa, but very complicated for the children themselves. So that is my thought on it.
So complicated for the children in Africa also, right?
Yes, but less complicated for the parents, because they actually have the maximum power to shape the way or how you should go as a child.
So are you trying to tell viewers the parents in Europe do not have the right?
They do have the right, but it's somehow also limited. A typical example is that I do know someone here in Europe, not in Ghana, I mean, where even in Europe, you can go to school, your teacher can see that, oh, for example, this child is very sad, when the teacher gets close to you and you tell, I want to be this, my parents are saying this, and because of that, they said because of the reason they don't want to give me what I want, it actually will turn into a different thing because the teacher also have the power to intervene. But in Africa, it's not like that. Your parents say B, you don't have no right to go in the C way. So that is where I stand on. In Africa, the parents have the maximum power and authority.
Which I think
in
is
Europe,
unfortunately.
yes. In Europe, it's a little bit different.
Bella T, what's your take on this?
I feel like whatever Mr. Bejo said is very accurate and is very true. But on my point of view, I feel like the children here in Europe, they are very free to live their life regardless of how the law have, certain standard concerning their own thought when it come about being free and doing your own things. Because at the end of the day, here in Europe, when you are 18, you are free to do whatever you want. But in Africa, it doesn't sit in that way. I mean, regardless, you can be 30 years, but you still obey your parents regardless. You know what I mean? So it's very challenging. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Right. So if I understand you all clearly, African children have not more rights than European children.
Exactly.
And European children have much rights because they can choose to do whatever they want.
Not necessarily they can choose to do whatever they want because of the right that protect them. Children's rights.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So children in Europe can choose to do what they want because of the rights and the rules and regulations that is here in Europe.
Yeah.
More than African children because their parents have the rights over them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So living in Africa, what are some of the challenges growing up as an African child?
Thank you for the question. Growing up in Africa with your parents, it comes with a lot of challenges. So with the challenges, just like we initially said, your rights are limited as a child. You do not have so much rights when it comes to decision making. And for example, you cannot just tell your parents or you cannot bring your partner, even if you are 18 years, you cannot just bring your partner into the household. I know in some households it happens, but it's less likely that you bring your partner, being it you are a male or female, and then try to introduce to them that this is your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your fiance, if I should put it in large. It will be a disaster in that very household at that particular moment. You cannot do that. But whereas in Europe it's different because they see it differently, that you want to make friends and all that. And then also being a child in Africa, what the society or your neighbors tell your parents is what they will believe. Regardless if you are a child and even you are doing something right, what your neighbor will tell your parents that your child, whilst you are away, your child did this, did that. That is what they will believe. And if they will have to punish you, they could punish you for something that even is most likely you know nothing about.
Really?
Okay. Yes, it's very true.
Yeah, you're right. Myself personally, growing up in Africa, I grew up in Africa also, and I even had my clothes, everything with my parents, even at the age of 18. Like, I still had to go to my mom before I could get something to go out. And there'll be a lot of questions like, where are you going? With who? What time are you coming back? And all that. So you never really have the freedom like that. And also there were some kind of, like you said, respect, other challenges that even in Europe is quite different. Because in Europe, at the age of 13, you just pick up your clothes and like, Mom, hey, I'm going out with my friend. We're going here and there. And they don't say anything. They only tell you, okay, come on time. Just be careful and all that. But in Africa, you can't do that. It only takes people who, I wouldn't say not responsible parents, but like who have parents that are not always at home or parents that are not always with them. those who have like house caretakers and all that, those who live with single parents, or those who have parents that are always busy at work and all that, that can do whatever they want.
Yes, it's true. And let me chip in this. This is actually an example. Imagine your parents, let me take you into the line of politics a bit. Imagine if your parents are with party A, and you as a child, even if you are matured enough, let's say you are in the tertiary institution or maybe senior high school, you decide to go with party B while they are in party A. I don't think both of you can live in the house.
Not really. Yeah. But you have to follow whatever party
they decide or what decision they make. That is what you have to follow. In a normal sense, it shouldn't be like that. Everyone has their own choices depending on whichever experience that they've had in life. But in Europe, it's different. You cannot actually tell your child the way to go.
Exactly.
Which party to vote for, or who to talk for, or who to go in favor of. So that was a typical example where I wanted to actually throw more light on.
Right. So what are the advantages being an African child, living with an African parent in, let's say, in Africa?
Yeah. So one of the advantages is also for the fact that, in a sense that they are strict, I think they can also guide you towards a goal. For example, if you want to go to the university or if you want to learn a vocation, because of the fact that they are always on you, trying to show you or trying to direct you how to go based on how they want it. At the long run, you will get to that goal.
Is it because of kind of a pressure?
A pressure. They will pressure you. Initially,
no, I wouldn't say it's kind of pressure. I think in my second,
a strict discipline.
Exactly. Yeah. A strict discipline. Yeah.
But stricting somebody, like you said, a strict discipline is kind of a pressure. What if the child is not ready? It's probably, I can say, I'm not ready to finish my uni. I probably want to do something else or learn something else. It's kind of a pressure.
No, so there are two different things. Pressure is different from strict discipline.
Okay.
So we have pressure like when someone puts a pressure on you to do something, and discipline is when you are being trained. Like being brought up in a good way, in a disciplinary way.
Like you said before, an African parent raised in Africa kind of have a say in your life.
Exactly, and that doesn't mean that is not pressure.
No, it's quite pressuring because, example, I want to be a doctor. No, I don't want to be a doctor. What if I want to be like a barber? That's my talent. And my parents are saying, no, you have to be a lawyer. It's kind of a pressure.
So one thing is, African parents do not actually pressure you to be what you don't want to be, but they discipline you, they train you to become what you want to be in the future. And right, like you said, if you want to be maybe a barber and they want you to be a doctor, so it's a kind of communication, right? Your parents can sit you down with your results or with something and communicate with you and tell you, okay, we understand what you want to do, but these are the points, and looking at these results, we don't think you will be able to go on with what you want to be in the future. Rather, look up to this way or continue with your studies. If you are able to get the results we needed, or maybe the school needs, then you can further on with your education to what level you want to get to.
I get it.
So it's not a kind of pressure, it's a kind of discipline.
Okay.
You get a disciplinary action.
Discipline.
Yeah, kind of. You get a disciplinary action, the kind of good upbringing for you to get to wherever you want to get to.
Yeah, and that's true. At the same time, I feel like they try to push the children to the position whereby they couldn't complete in life,
Exactly.
The view, like the vision they had at that time, they couldn't complete. Yeah, so they try to put that energy into the children to be something beneficial to the family as well.
Right.
That's my take on it as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But let me chip in something. You've all made a good point. You made good points. But as a result, I think it is because things are now changing. We are in the 21st century now. Things are changing. Initially, just like you said, your parents will not actually sit you down to actually break things in order for you that, based on the results that you are getting, we think you can go this far or you can go that way. That will help. I think it's good. But initially, it wasn't like that. Imagine you cannot actually tell your parents that you are going to be, should I say, a block layer. And with respect to those who lay blocks, I'm not saying it's not a good job, but in those days, we just perceived those, we didn't have enough respect for such professions, you know. So they will never agree with you. Imagine you are good when it comes to your results and say, I want to grow up and be a block layer or a stonemason, you know. They were like, oh, because you're intelligent, I mean, you can be a lawyer. I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be a soldier. I want you to be a nurse.
I get it, but funny enough, I think
Yes.
a block layer gets more paid in Europe than in
Yeah,
Africa.
so the point that I'm
because
making
of
is,
financial
yes,
status.
the point that I'm trying to make is that gone are the days that we actually look down upon some professions.
Yeah, exactly.
But now things are changing.
I mean, I think it's comprehensible if they look down on kind of, because I think they get paid less.
Yeah.
Because in Europe, if you're working like home constructions or building, you get paid more because it's
Exactly.
dangerous and there is risks and they train for it. I think in Africa they necessarily don't train for it.
Yes.
You can just say that I'm just going to work because I feel like that's the best job.
That's the best job.
Yeah, so I understand why the parents are kind of strict
Yeah.
on their kids,
Okay.
but
What Mr. Bejo is saying is not necessarily looking down on the children, but looking at the differences. Like,
it's not about looking
what-
down, it's about the finances.
no,
Because
He-
a block layer
he-
doesn't get
he has
more
a point.
paid. Yeah.
Mr. Bejo is making a point. His
Yeah.
point is not like looking at who is getting less money, who is getting higher money,
Mm-hmm.
but he's looking at what the child can become or what they want the children to become in the future.
What the parents want them to be.
You understand?
And who the children
But I
themselves
feel
want
like-
to be.
For me, my personal view, I feel like each and every African parent want their kids to succeed, want them to have the best job possible,
Yeah,
to able
exactly.
to be financially stable.
Stable. Yeah.
I know. But
That's the thought.
though, I think the point that you are not getting is the fact that initially, if you remember, I said things are changing.
Yeah, of
So
course.
we are getting to know more. At first, no one wishes or no parent in Ghana will be wishing that their children will go and then being a block layer.
Right.
Definitely, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because they actually have that perception. They had that perception that it's a low paying job. Or even it's not a profession that comes with a lot of respect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But things are changing. Now someone can go into that profession, gain more experience, get certifications. Some people are just even self-contractors.
That's
That
really
they
good.
take contracts, build mega mansions, and they are making a lot. You know. So I think initially they didn't have that should I say info or knowledge when it comes to such jobs. These are the gone are the days or these days that in Europe people were actually making jobs. I know in Europe such jobs even pays more than someone who actually
Right.
receive
Yeah.
monthly salaries.
Definitely.
You get it. So that was my notion that things are changing. Initially that was how it was, but now
Now-
things are changing. Although the European standard is a little bit far ahead, but they are catching up.
Yeah, I think before African parents think like if you go to school, finish your education, wear suit and tie, yeah, then
Exactly.
okay,
That's
we
the
know
best
you're doing a great job and all
impression you
that.
can
But
make.
there are a lot of people putting on suit and tie, they don't even make it. Like what they are earning is very less than the people that are not even wearing suits.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very
Sure.
unfortunate.
Because it was when I got to Europe that I realized that even those with handiworks, those that have crafts for themselves, even make more money than those working with, let's say, FM
In
and
the
they are
offices
being
and all
paid.
that,
Yes.
That's very true.
That's true.
But in Ghana, it's not like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, only although things are changing, but it wasn't like that
So
before.
So, what do you think are the challenges being an African child, being born in Europe or growing up in Europe with an African parent?
Me personally, I feel like the challenges are many to tackle, but they always think that because you were born here or they brought you here, example, when as you were a child, you don't have a say. You don't have a say because they brought you here or they came here and born. You don't have a say in certain things. But when you challenge them,
Do you think African parents think you don't have a say?
yes.
What
If
makes
they
you
don't
think
have
so?
the mentality, if they don't associate the mentality with, like, some parents are still, let's say, cultured. Some African parents who are raising their children who are born in the diaspora, they are more called, they still think about how they were raised. They want to input that kind of mentality onto you, but they need to understand that it's different. When you born a child or you bring a child from Ghana or any country, and the child is little, their mentality is totally different, trust me. So I personally think the challenges are quite few, but at the same time, it gets to a point that they come to the realization that they have to let you be, based on they can't do anything about it because you have rights. You get it. I personally think my parents.
I think every child has a right. Yeah.
Yes, of course. But I think my parents get to the point of time they thought, oh, we can't deal with them in the African way. We have to deal with them in the European way, which they don't use violence. They talk to us. They explain things to us. I never knew. I think I personally think that I matured more when I went to Africa, because the things that I witnessed. Makes me, like I said before, I was fooling. Yes, 100%. I was fooling, because I felt like the world will round around me. Everything that I would say, it has to be final. Sometimes, not to say it was a good thing, but I could trade my parents with police, because before, like, that's the only thing that was going to stop them. When they're doing something.
And in Africa, you dare not call police.
Who are you to call police on your African parents in Africa?
Yeah.
So that was
how did you think you got matured when you went to Africa?
I think I become more wiser. I saw that.
You couldn't have become more wiser in Europe with your African parents?
Definitely
Why?
No. Because I feel like all the rights revolved around me. I could have to say, sometimes I would sit down and my parents would come to me and talk to me about something like discussion. I'm not going to be personal, but probably we want you to do this. I feel like the way you're tonation, how you speak with us, is kind of disrespectful. But I feel like it's in Europe. I have my opinion to speak my mind, regardless if it's disrespectful or not. That was my mentality.
Yeah, so if I understand you, it's not like you became wise or matured when you went to Africa, but you learned certain things. You became cultured when you went to Africa.
I became more cultured and also mature, because I saw that in Africa it's not that easy. Some kids, they don't have anything, but they use the little that they have to come they raise up to be like
who they are,
the best version of.
Yeah. The best version of
an African child can come in Europe, right, and be the best version of somebody who's born here or raised here, because we don't have that opportunity. So I feel like that was my challenges growing up. I feel like it's better if you are raised here. The parents should also let you know more about your culture, because I was always more like with white people at school. I was more at school. My dad was more at work. My mom was also doing certain things. So my mind was more like I was always out. I was never indoors. If I have to come home, probably I have to come home to sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
You made mention of violence, like African parents being violent, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain further?
I think one time I was so rude to my dad that he wanted to raise his hands on me.
In Africa?
No, here personally. And I was like, if you dare raise your hands to me, I'm going to call the cops on you. You dare not.
And that makes you think African parents are violent?
No, I think that I was rude. I should have known my place. I
Right.
provoked my dad. I'm not
Right.
going to say that I'm perfect. I did provoke him because I didn't know what is right and what is wrong at the time. I feel like I could say anything and get scot-free with it. And my dad was like, hell no, you do not speak with me in that manner. So I was really rude, which I think he wanted to straight me the right way. And I was like, I'm calling the cops on you because you don't have any right to touch me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was wrong.
Right. Bella T,
Yeah.
what's your view on the challenges about children being brought up in Europe or being born in Europe?
Well, I think like being born in Europe, it gives you the chance to be more stubborn, okay, and exploring a dimension whereby like you feel like you are on top of the world. You do anything that pleases you. You don't care about the thoughts about your parents or anything like that, because at the end of the day, the law is still on your beside, So it's not an easy task to take. But at the end of the day, what I've learned through this journey growing up in Europe is that regardless everything, you still need to respect your parents. Okay, at the end of the day, I feel like I am an Italian person because I grown up over there, but still yet there is that percentage in me that I'm still a Ghanaian. Okay, that
Right.
energy is still there. And my parents have disciplined me in that angle as well. So the challenges are many, but only if you put yourself in a position whereby you can be educated enough to listen enough and know that there is a way that you can still change to be the better version of yourself. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Do you think African parents or parents in general make their children become stubborn or good? Or do you think that children themselves choose the path of becoming good or bad?
I think being here in Europe, right? Since you have your freedom, you navigate through it a little bit. So you personally decide either being a good kid or not. Because regardless everything, you can have fights at home or anything, but you can still call the police on your parents easily, you know, and they will still back you easily because the law is always on your side. You know what I mean? So it's not an easy task as well. But at the end of the day, as I said, only when you realize that your parents want to discipline you in the right path, that's when you allow yourself to be disciplined. If not, it's very challenging. Because I grown up being a stubborn, girl. I'm not gonna lie on this. And
And your boy, someone growing up a stubborn girl.
Right.
and since I grown up to a certain age, that's when I realized that whatever pressure my parents were putting on me then to change or to correct me on certain type of things that I used to do then,
Yeah.
it has helped me or it has shaped me to be the person I am right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to chip in right now. I think that when life deals with you,
You change automatically.
you will get what your parents were trying to tell you.
What if life doesn't deal with you?
Somehow life will deal with you.
It
Not
cannot be-
everybody has been in such a situation. Others were
I
brought
can't
up
talk
with
about everybody, but I'm talking about my perspective.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because if you say when life deals with you, like you're talking about in general, and this is a topic for everybody, right?
Sure.
So not everybody that has this kind of situation that life is dealing with, So others were born with a silver spoon, you understand? And these kind of people, life doesn't deal with them in any way.
Yeah, life does not deal with them.
It
When
look-
their parents are no more,
Exactly.
they don't know how to control their wealth.
Exactly. So, for example, he has a single parent, or maybe his parents leave the world, or maybe they travel, and he or she is not getting whatever he has to get. This is when they realize, yo, I should have done that. I have to do this and all that. Right. So, do you think there are advantages between children living in Africa with African parents and children living in Europe with African European parents?
Yes, there are many. I personally feel like I wish that probably when I was my teenagers years, my parents have sent me back home.
Why?
Because I feel like sending me back home at that teenager years would have helped me and come to the realization and understanding that life does not revolve around me.
That's you,
Yeah.
right? That's good. Mr. George, what do you also think about it?
There are advantages. I wouldn't actually be specific on, let's say, Ghana or Europe, because each and every way it comes with their own merits and demerits. So I think there are advantages. For example, in Africa, I think the discipline is actually is a very top notch. When you are growing with with African parents back in Africa, and then also say there is a saying that no one was born to be a criminal, but
Right.
society made it so.
That's very
So I think in the African setting itself, in the African society itself, unless I know there are few exceptions whereby situations lead some kids into certain lives that it actually isn't good enough. But in an African setting, I think the society itself, like I gave you an example, even if your parents are not around and you do something that the society does not accept, even a neighbor can actually punish you for that, which to the African parent is acceptable.
Exactly, but not in Europe, right?
Yes, yes. So that is the advantages come with more or less like the discipline is actually a top notch. In Europe, whereas the discipline is not really on a top notch compared to Africa. But in Europe as well, there are certain things, or it is a very vast reasons why children choose to go the way they go. Because if a child also doesn't get the kind of thing that they want, they also resort to things that are really bad.
I think it's all everywhere, yeah.
Yes.
In both Africa, Europe, when the children don't get what they want, it only takes a responsible child, disciplined child, to remain and be respectful or calm to the parent. Because most children, when they don't get, even to we, the elders, when we don't get what we want, we do what we have to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in Europe, a lot of things are at their disposal, but they also lack this parental discipline. I'm not saying not all households, if we say that, don't get us wrong, but we are actually dealing with percentages. We are doing comparative analysis. So that is also what they lack regarding kids in Europe. So it's diverse, both each way, whether Europe or Ghana, it comes with their own merits and demerits.
Belati, what is your take on this? Advantages on children living with African parents and African European parents in Europe?
I think like in Africa itself, whatever your parents agree when it's come about you, you flow with it. You don't have an option.
Right.
Okay? Like you are like a remote, they control you regardless because they have the financial status set up for you. They take care of you and everything. Like, so it's like you don't have a say. But when it's come about Europe itself, you are kind of free because even though you can be underage and misbehaving or anything like that, but they will still help you through the journey. Like you will not be abandoned or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like you will still always have that financial support and all that. They can still adopt you, like you have more opportunities. So in a way, the European kids, they are more lucky than it's in a way, in quotes, I'm not gonna say everyone, right? But the European people, they had more chances, let me put it that way. Than the African kids.
Would you want your children to live and grow up in Africa or in Europe?
Definitely in Africa.
I think if I had the chance to, I would do so for them to grow up in Africa. At least for certain.
The chances are always there.
Yeah. I feel like, on that aspect, I can say yes, because first of all, they can misbehave when they are in Africa, they are very disciplined, respectful, and they have that takes to steady a little bit more than the European in a way.
So if I understand you clearly, meaning when you have your kids and there's the possibility, understanding between you and your man, you would like your children to grow up in Africa, right?
I personally, yes. Yes,
perfect.
100%.
Mr. George?
Okay, so this is my take. This is my personal take. For me, I would like my kids to grow in Europe.
Right.
Definitely.
What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, because as a parent, I want to help shape my kids the way they should go. Right. I just want to be with them. I want to give them.
You can also be with them in Africa.
Yes.
Because I'm not sure you just take them to Africa and come back to
exactly. But this is for me. This is where I live.
Right.
This is where I live. So most definitely, that's why initially I said that's my personal opinion. This is where I live. So I want my kids to be with me.
Will you train them the languages, culture, and everything?
Exactly. For that one, there is no I wouldn't compromise that for anything.
What if you get yourself involved with a lady, for example, from Tanzania, and you are from Ghana?
Most definitely, for what I know, I think the African settings are a little bit similar.
Yeah, because probably maybe the woman would also like the children to go to Tanzania, or like the children to learn the culture and all that.
At the end of the day,
how will you take this?
Yes, at the end of the day, I think you have to discuss with your partner. You know, then both of you should make a decision.
Come into understanding,
Yes,
right?
come into a conclusion. Okay, based on what we discussed,
Mutual understanding.
we've had this understanding, or we've decided that maybe, okay, let the kids go to Africa, or I think we can take care of our own kids. Let them be here. We'll provide them with whatever they want, but we will actually ensure they are actually doing the right thing.
Don't forget that the law is always on the kid's side in
I know.
court.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But I also know that from how you brought or you bring them up determines the way they should go.
It's not like that.
It's
I
not
know.
always
I'm
like
coming.
that.
When the children go to school, they learn the laws.
Yeah.
So they know the
coming.
law.
And they
know
want
how
to
know
explore
before-
freely.
Yes, but before they get to like of matured age,
Yeah.
18, you have some kind of right.
Not some kind.
You have
in
some
Europe,
kind of right.
I think when you have 18, you have the full right of your life. You can actually move out from the parents' house.
Yeah, I know. I said
You
before.
have rights
That's what I'm
of-
saying before. Before 18, as a parent,
You have rights
some
on the
kind of
kids till the age
yes,
of 18.
Yes.
After that, it is impossible.
I
in a
know,
way.
but if the kids will be, they should go on a bad note or they will end on a good note. I think by 18, the decision have already been made.
Yes.
So
But-
if you instill some kind of discipline,
Let me chip in.
yes,
It's because the kid, I've lived here. Let us have lived in Italy and Germany. Precisely in Italy most of my life here. And I'm trying to tell you that no matter how your parents are disciplined, try as much as possible to raise you in a standard of African mentality. When the kids go to school and meet with other different people, their mentality automatically
change, yeah.
I'm
But
telling you
not
the
all of
fact.
them.
I know,
Not
but
all of it. Then,
But the
regardless,
majority.
The
but
majority.
regardless, there are
Depending
some
on the
kids-
parents.
Because
Yes.
personally, I have a friend, right? I used to have a friend back in the days whereby their parents are like pastors, Sofumami and on that energy, good family, going to church and all that. But at the end of the day, this my particular friend used to smoke weed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
So it's
think things like this happen when the parents do not take action right from the beginning.
That
What
was
kind
my
of
point.
action do you have? You can't.
But
Yeah.
no, let me
What kind
chip
of
in.
action?
Let me
Because
chip
in the
this.
beginning, you
What kind of
think
action?
the child is calm, responsible, and all that. So you leave the child, and before you realize, the child is going astray.
My question
And-
is, what kind of action?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you leave the children to do what they want because you think, I have Dory. Dory is a calm daughter. She does her homework. She comes home quick, sleep, and all that. But you wouldn't know if she's doing something bad or not because you don't check the children up. You think, oh, this is good, and you'll be focusing on Kwame because you think Kwame is coming home late. Kwame is stubborn. He's always on the phone, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, before you realize, Kwame is rather doing the right thing, and Dory being calm, she's rather misbehaving inside the room.
Exactly. That's what I was
Yeah.
trying
So that's what the
And
African
let's not
parents.
forget,
Yeah, that's
we are actually doing comparative analysis.
Yes.
It does not mean every kid in Africa is a good child.
That's
Right.
true.
Not
There are-
even in Europe as
Yes,
well,
I'm coming.
with both
Yes.
sides.
There are kids, there are children in Africa right now that are actually astray. Right now, they are actually in a bad situation
Yeah.
or in a bad lifestyle. Although their parents were actually disciplined. I know some kids that had like parents that are very disciplined. For some, their fathers they were even men of God. But right now, they are actually in a life that is actually unbearable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In a bad situation. Okay, so let's not also forget that actually training your child in Africa does not automatically mean the child will become who you want
Yeah,
them to be.
yeah,
Never.
that's true.
So if
Never.
we put it in such a way,
all
we might
of
be
them,
getting it
yeah.
wrong.
So I feel like it depends on the kids.
Yes, although there is a higher probability that
Yeah.
the kids will actually get a good training back in
Yeah.
Africa. So that was why I made the point.
It doesn't depend on the kid, it depends on the parent.
On the parent. That's why I was making a point. Although I would prefer to actually grow my kids to be growing up from Europe or in Europe.
Yeah.
So
Because
he can
I
have
know
an eye
the
on
kind
them.
of life that I want to
You want
instill
to
with them.
instill
Exactly.
Till
Yeah.
them once they are children, till they get up,
Yeah.
or they grow up enough.
But me personally,
In
like I
short
said,
words, excuse me. In short word, it's like what you program into the kids. That's what they
Is the
become.
programming.
Yeah, it's the programming.
Although the society
You
have
know,
influence, but
yeah.
I think as a parent you can do it. I mean,
Of course.
you can do it. You
But
can
I-
try.
It's not an easy task, but
but you
Yeah.
can
as
try.
much as you put
But-
your effort,
But I
you can
personally
Right.
think that our parents growing up, they tried. My dad especially, they tried as much as possible. But I feel like I was really stubborn. Me, I was.
You're
really
the stubborn child.
And so I feel like me.
She was stubborn.
One semester, one another.
stubborn there.
So personally, I think I was, it's true. I was really the quiet one. Everybody was saying, "Oh, Oba with your Yoruba,
goodness.
she's quiet," but I was the one doing the most of things
Yeah.
because of how quiet I am. Because I was coming home on time, doing house things. Because I feel like that was the best thing to do to be able to cover up my stuff that I was doing.
Right.
That
Watch out for
innocent-
your children who are trying to be innocent.
But
That innocent face deceive a lot.
yeah, a lot. So I feel like in all my siblings, my parents feel like I was going to be the best out of them, but it turned out something else. I'm not saying I'm not the best now. I am, but I feel like
Then
We have to find out from her parents.
I tried as much. When I went to
to call
Ghana,
them.
watch
Yeah.
out for the
when I went to
second
Ghana,
interview.
it opens my mind in a lot of things. So me personally, I feel like I'm not saying that raising your children in Europe is bad. I will raise my kids in Europe, yes, but in their teenagers, I would definitely take them to Ghana probably for 3 years, just 3 years, and bring them back to be able to continue
To
their
straight them
education.
up mentally
That is
and
it.
everything. Yeah.
I will raise them here. Obviously, I will allow my kids to go to school here. But I feel like in Ghana, education,
It's everything.
It's-
It's a one of
I
you
feel
know,
personally the education in Ghana is really hard. There is
Yeah.
pressure. There
There's
is this kind
pressure,
of
yeah.
straight education. They will give you assignments. They will tell you, "Oh, we have exams. Go and read this book and go and read."
Yeah.
Me sometimes, yeah, I'm being specific.
And let
After
us
2 days near exams, after I come book and read.
let us not forget that in Ghana, even the kids wake up like 4 a.m., 3 a.m. to study. Something that in Europe it is impossible to do.
Yeah.
Like, their mindset is everything. Like they are so disciplined. When it's come about making something, they put that energy into it and they do it. They deliver easily.
Right.
But here in Europe, it's not the same thing.
You just get back
We
from school and that's
yeah,
it.
they just fool around easily.
Yeah. In Africa, probably I remember from school you come home, you have a siesta, like 1 hour sleep, you wake up, you study something, then you do whatever you have to do. In the evening before you go to bed, you have to study for 1 hour again before you go to bed. And we have time that you sleep, contributing to the age aspect. Yeah. So I remember when I was little, I used to sleep there was a time I used to sleep like 8 o'clock. And there was also a time that I used to sleep like 10 o'clock, depending on what stage I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody will put pressure on you. You know your timetable.
Yeah.
This time you have to go to bed. And of course you have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes we used to, hide anyway. You go stay behind the door.
We've all been through that.
You've been watching your television. When you hear somebody coming, you just switch it
I
off.
feel
Yeah.
like in Europe here, I'm gonna say something very important here. In Europe,
Of
the
course,
things that-
everything you've been saying is
yeah,
important.
I feel like in Europe, the thing that spoils kids are phones. At the age of 7,
The thing that spoils kids are from where?
Phones.
Phones.
Yeah.
Okay.
are the things that spoil children.
You mean
Europe.
access to social
Internet,
media or
yes,
phone itself?
yes.
I mean,
Social media.
But children in Europe are restricted to certain things online.
No.
So if
no,
you tell me,
no, not
Of course.
now, not these days.
as that's
a
what
parent,
George
it
said.
look
Hold on,
like-
that's what George said. It depends on the parents, because as I know, most kids living with their parents in Europe, they are restricted to certain things on the internet.
and even time.
Yeah.
There is this app,
YouTube, even YouTube,
you cannot go straight.
you can't go straight.
There is this app, like it's called Familiar Link. Ne? There are many apps, yeah.
What
that you can
what
input
you're
on your
saying, I
children.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, with all
But
respect.
growing up amid my time, the internet was not that. Let me say,
Like things were not advanced.
yes. It
right
was
now.
advanced, but
But the
wasn't
point
that-
is, you can be sleeping as a parent, and the kid can take your phone. How can you?
That's why George said it depends on the parent. So as a
Yeah.
parent, you have your phone.
So-
why should you have your kids get access to your phone?
Yeah. You know,
And
let me,
what
let
I
me
know
chip
is
in.
your phone is your phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me chip in quickly. You know, I work for a network company. That's what I do. And for the customers, we do have some application. There is an application whereby you can actually set up the devices that are connected and limit it to a particular time.
Yeah. So what is your advice to viewers watching on this topic?
Personally, I think like African in general, they need to be involved in their children' life on a daily basis and be able to, know what is going on about their kids daily, not just once in a while,
In their daily
And-
life activities,
and exactly. And to be able to, put this energy of love into them so that the kids will be very easy and like open up to their parents as well and being truthful to them without hiding anything. Yeah, that's my advice for them.
Yeah. Mr. George?
Yeah, so my advice to parents, both in Ghana and those in the diaspora, is that keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, every society has its own way of life.
Exactly.
So, but most importantly, as we are Africans, things are changing. This advice goes to the African parents. Things are changing. So we shouldn't forget that the fact that we still hold, or we are still holding on to African values of doing things. We should also check the other side as well. I mean,
Sure.
when it comes to taking the child's or the children's interest into consideration, we should try to check it and balance it.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, the case doesn't feel like always someone is trying to control their life. Although, in a way, we are in control, or the African parents are in control, but we should check that one as well. And then also to these parents in their diaspora, also, we shouldn't try to go or deal with a case the way Africans are, because if you get here, you should know that you are in a different setting altogether. So you should try to balance. You go with the European style a little bit. You go with your African way of doing things. You try to balance it in a way that you wouldn't have to put pressure, or you wouldn't have to dictate for the children, because whether we like it or not, we are in a different society. And
Sure.
things are done differently.
My advice is for the African parents, both diaspora in Africa, that there is a saying in the Bible: when you go to Rome, you do what the Romans do, right?
Yeah.
So I feel personally that I'm not gonna say much, but I concur with everything that you just said. So I feel like they should be more open-minded and also more caring and loving and nurturing
Very
to their
important.
kids. And that's all I'm going to say. Kudos to you guys. You guys are trying.
Amazing.
I know it's difficult, especially raising your kids in Europe. But I also applaud you parents for doing much and the best that you guys can do. So that is all I could say.
Well, I go with them, and that's right. We just have to make time and get more open to our kids, so our kids can get closer to us, so we will know their daily activities, their in and out, whatever is going on with them. Right. Thank you very much for watching, and please don't forget to tap on the subscription button and also the notification button to get our videos whenever they are uploaded, and also please share. And don't forget to comment on the comment section, because your comments are very important to Ken's
Yeah, very
Media.
welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.